The research program that I'm going to describe to you is quickly characterizable by saying, if in your office you as an intellectual worker were supplied with a computer display backed up by a computer that was alive for you all day and was instantly responsive, instantly responsive to every action you had, how much value could you derive from that? Well, this basically characterizes what we've been pursuing for many years in what we call the Augmented Human Intellect Research Center at Stanford Research Institute. Now, the whole session is going to be devoted to trying to describe and present to you the nature of this program, but unfortunately, or fortunately, the products of this program, the technology of it, lends itself well to an interesting way to portray it for you. So we're going to try our best to show you rather than tell you about this program. So I'm putting in an entity called a statement, and that's full of other entities called words. And if I make some mistakes, I can back up a little bit. So I have a statement with some entities' words, and I can do some operations on these. I can copy a word. I can say that word like copy after itself. In fact, that pair of words I'd like to copy after itself, and I can just do this a few times and get a bit of material there. And there are other entities like text. Say after there, I'd like to copy from that entity point to that point, and it'll copy it. Great. Let's make more statements. I'll say copy that statement, and lo and behold, I have another one. Copy that one, another one. I can even copy groups of statements. I can say after that one, copy the group from there to there. And it does. I can look at that and say, probably goes off the screen. It'd be interesting if I could ask the computer to collapse that, perhaps to show me just the first line of each of those statements. All right, please do that. So it did. This is one aspect of what we'll use over and over again through this presentation, what we call view control, where no matter where in a file we're looking, we can ask it to use any one of a large number of parameters for constructing a view at that point in the file that best suits our need at the time. This one wants us to give an overview of the thing. So let me jump back to the head of the list, and I can do things like begin to reorganize it a little bit. Well, I say after bananas, it's more likely that I'll take the carrots there, and so carrots move right up behind bananas. And aspirin doesn't really belong there. I think aspirin goes after paper towels in the order. Well, pretty soon I would begin to have a lot of trouble keeping that straight. So let me organize it by saying just generally produce. So I'll say, well, produce, I'll categorize things. Let me look at it that way, and I'll say, let me move a statement for produce carrots, and I'd like to subcategorize it. So it moved. And there it is. All right, produce, I've got carrots, and I'll move under there also bananas. And in fact, I could move a whole group under there, saying oranges and apples also. So I can begin categorizing things like that, and if I looked at the numbers now, I'd find that these items fit under there as a subset, and I realize I can categorize quite extensively. I could introduce a new thing under there that was something I just invented, a skinless banana, but I have to go there and look at it. So part of our view control, besides this thing we've shown you of showing numbers or not, is also whether we can show you some of these different levels or not. I can say I only want to see 2 levels, or only 1 level deep in there. It makes it very nice for studying it. Or I can do something like when I say, let's put produce at the top, let's open up 1 level below it and only show me what's below it. And another level if I wish, and then no numbers. So these moving around with jump to identities, there are many ways to move around and to make views, and this is one of the basic features of this tool we have. Well, suppose I worked for some time at this and then call up my wife to get the rest of the list. I'd eventually end up with a whole structure. where I could say, gee, there were a lot of things. A market, shoe store I have to stop to. Let me see what I was supposed to get in the market. Oh, produce, cans, cereals. What about cereals? Oh, cereals, bread, noodles, like that. Okay. Back up there, if I want to look at the numbers, that's what I can. If I want to open up everything, see that, or many lines. There are many ways in which I can look at that. But there's another thing I can do. There's a root I said I have here. So here, I'm afraid I'll need a different picture of the view. So here's what I drew with a picture drawing capability here. It's a slight map if I start from work, and here's the route I seem to have to go to pick up all the materials. And that's my plan for getting home tonight. But if I want to, I can say, the library, what am I supposed to pick up there? I can just point to that, and oh, I see, overdue books and all. Well, there was a statement there with that name on it. Go back. What am I supposed to pick up at the drugstore? I see, very interesting. All right. Market? Oh, I've already seen that. Produce and all like that. Gee, that's too much. Anyway, so we have this feature of structuring our material hierarchically, being able to move around it very well. When we get a hierarchy, such as I can show you here now, I can do things if I want to just say, I'd like to interchange produce and canned materials. Bingo. And they're all numbered rightly if I care to look. Interchanging them very quickly. Cans are going to get interchanged with produce. They do it and all gets renumbered. So I have ways of studying over, making different views, moving around, going to specified points, and modifying the structure. At the same time, I've seen that I have a repertoire of different entities, like character, knock off that character, replace a character, make that P. So I have entities of all sorts that I can say I want to do operations on, and this basic structure that I can move over and study and get about very quickly. So that is the essence now. That's the essence of the tool we have. There are a lot of details that I've left out for you. To find out the definitions of a lot of terms. Here's sort of a glossary. Well, let's do the thing called freeze a statement, and then say, put that at the top. And lo and behold, that statement now is going to be frozen in our display scanning windows from the dotted line down. And then we know about names and jumping to name, and so we can say, what's a bug? Oh, down here tells you what a bug is. I see. Well, let's see. What's a level? Select level. Tells you what level is. What's a mouse? That's fun to look at. There's a mouse. You can just point. So you can sit here and point to successive terms, and it goes there. The scanning window goes there. The frozen glossary stays, and you can see the definitions. Very nice. And some of the definitions you can recognize terms here. That's an odd one. Maybe that's a name. Let's just see. Oh, sure enough. It's a sketch showing the mouse and the mouse buttons. It's very nice to have documentation like this, and you as a user could sit down and early find your way around in this to find the definitions, descriptions, procedures for commands, and all like that. Okay, to talk about control devices, we'll use this overhead camera shot where you can see the devices that I'm using. I use 3, and they're not all standard. We have a pointing device called a mouse, a standard keyboard, and a special key set we have here. And we're going to go for a picture down in our laboratory in Menlo Park and pipe it up that'll show you from another point of view more about how that mouse works. Come in, Menlo Park. Okay, there's Don Andrews' hand in Menlo Park. And in a second, we'll see the screen that he's working and the way the tracking spot moves in conjunction with movements of that mouse. I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way, and we never did change it. All right. As it moves up or down or sideways, so does the tracking spot. And the principles for its operation are quite easy to see. If you'll turn it over, Don. Can you hear me, Don? Would you turn it over and we'll see, right. Its principle is that there are two wheels that roll on the surface. But since they're at right angles and kind of sharp edges, one will roll and the other slide in one direction. Each of these wheels controls through a potentiometer with a voltage output sampled by an 880 converter the numbers taken in by the computer at sample times as to what the horizontal vertical components are to be of where it should put the tracking spot. This device over here is unique to us, and we always have to justify and explain it. We'll do it in reverse order. We'll explain it first. It provides for you the one-hand equivalent of what you can do with a keyboard. There are 5 keys, and normally each finger sits on a key, and depressing any one key at a time produces a character. And any 2 keys at a time also. And in fact, any combination of depressing, of which there are 31 combinations, and one of their designers, Jack Kelly, came one day and spent a day working with us about our ideas about our control consoles as being separated from display consoles, and ended up making this on a chair that I can get up, move around and sit down and swivel and rock and lean back and work. Very relaxed. I'd like now to have us bring in Jeff Rulison from Menlo Park, and we'll switch to his console. He's sitting at one just like this, been working independently. Hi, Jeff. Oh. We're not hearing you very well.
Oh, you're not hearing me? How about now?
That's fine.
Okay.
Programmers, you programmers are the ones who most intensely found use for working online as we're building up. Show them how you structured your system guide. Okay?
Okay. I think we can do that. We can get sort of a good feeling for the way the whole system is put together by looking through the system guide. The file is one that system programmers sort of put together, help them get around. NLS right now is getting to be a fairly large program. It's not huge by a lot of standards, but it's getting pretty big. From the picture, I can move to a little section in this file, which is an area that system programmers leave around notes for each other. There's nothing much interesting here. A little bit about the documentation and the patch space that's left. One of the interesting things that NLS does, just an advantage of being online, is it keeps track of who you are and what you're doing all the time. So on these statements, on every statement that you write, it keeps track of who you are and when you did it. So not only can people leave notes around for each other, but sort of automated into how they, there's an automated aid here that tells us who did it and when they did it. I can set up search patterns. I think these will probably be talked about later.
Underneath here, we direct messages to each other that we can unfold and see. But many times, you didn't want direct messages as much as you just like to go through and leave a message for somebody. So we worked out that the conventions would be, where's an example? The convention we're going to use is that we would send a message to a guy. If I wanted to send Bill English, WKE, a message, I would put that in the file, WKE from DCE, with that pound sign in between. So any statement that's marked like that means there's a message to him from me. If I want to, I can say was also for Dave Evans, like that. So that's from me to both of them. All right, we have this thing we call a content analyzer, Jeff mentioned briefly, in which we can write expressions in a language. Let's just come down here and look. Here's a little expression in a special language that means I'm going to look for Mr. XXX, a message from him. All right, what if I say I want that XXX to be DCE? That says someplace in there I want to find that pound sign and DCE. So we've got a little compiler. We say from there, compile it. Comes back and says I did it okay. And now I can say, all right, only show me the statements that passed the test, that someplace in them they have that string. There they are. So in every one of those, that's from DCE, DCE. Well, you've seen most of the way through here how this serves as a very powerful tool for an individual to work when he's studying, doing his planning, designing, debugging, documenting. But we also saw, through the medium of leaving messages for each other and filtering them, that people can collaborate quite well over a period of time by working on joint files. In fact, you can have a joint file and go leave a message and get a response in a matter of minutes because they're all available instantly by anybody from one of these terminals. But there's another degree of collaboration which is very important, and which we're just going to be setting up in the next few months the hardware to do computer aid. But here we're going to set it up with a little bit of people aid too. So I'm going to establish a collaborative mode between me and another terminal. Bill Paxton's at a terminal back at SRI. So Bill, will you come in through this intercom?
Hello, Doug.
Hi. I need to know what terminal you're on, Bill.
13.
Okay. I'd like to have him see my text. And so this special thing, if I label 13, will switch over. So in his display, he sees my text. So I'll execute it. And sure enough, it does. But what's that running around? Well, if he's looking at my text, he'd like to have something to say about it. So we put on a marker, a tracking spot that he controls. So he's sitting in Menlo Park looking at this text, and he can point to it. But we've carefully reserved for me the right to control and operate on this. So my bug is more powerful than yours. But we can have an argument. Yeah. That's what they call a bug fight. So, all right. So in case you haven't been listening, Bill, we've been going through lots of examples and setting up in collaboration here so that we can go on into information retrieval. And we've set up now audio coupling, and then we're both looking at the same display, and that'd be very handy to work. We can talk to each other and point, and maybe later I could hand you the chalk on this blackboard, like saying, here, you control it. But let's stay this mode now and add another feature that hardware-wise is available to the kind of display we have. I'd like to see you while I'm working on it. So before I can do that, I have to set up my display in a certain way. Set it up so I see it over like that. That leaves a corner up there, and I say, now computer, do the automatic switching that'll bring in a camera picture from the camera mounted on his console, such as the camera mounted on mine is. Hi, Bill. That's great. Now we're connected audio. You can see my work, you can point at it, and I can see your face, and we can talk. So let's do some collaborating. You're going to have to defend that.
You going to give it to me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. We've been talking about retrieval all afternoon, really. That's one of the main things you're involved in doing.
And in that network, we're going to try to develop a special service to provide network information, relevant network information for people, for the kind of information that it takes to operate such a network. Who's got what services, what protocol do I use to get there, who's up to date, how much, where's the user's guide, where can I find the paper that describes this system that so-and-so offers. And that's going to be a very interesting challenge for us to utilize our tools for organizing and retrieving information. I'd like to close and give you some description of the support we've gotten from the different people to produce this and to acknowledge that. And back in Menlo Park, we've got quite a team of people surrounded by quite a bit of equipment that have been busy listening to us and trying to control and switch. And these monitors are up here where all the displays went. The cameras went for some use, and the displays go here so that they can monitor the different signals and switch and send us what one we want. All right. And I particularly want to give appreciation to Bill English, who has not only designed all of the hardware, or been responsible for the hardware and software development that gives us our service system over these years. Without being formal, I'd like to really say that I'm backed up by a really very tremendous team of these 17 guys who have caught the spirit of putting on this show tremendously and have just done an overwhelming job about putting it all together and about backing me all these years in this wild dream of doing this sort of thing. And they're all catching fire, and I want to just tell them all right now, I owe them a lot. And a very final credit goes to my wife and daughters who are out here to whom I'd like to dedicate this whole presentation because of what they've put up with over these years, with a husband that dedicated in a monomaniacal way to something very wild. And so this whole presentation is dedicated to you four people there. And I thank all the rest of you very much for coming to the dedication ceremonies.